I stood frozen in the hallway, my fingers still gripping the doorknob. My name is Daniel Reed, and in that moment my wife of 12 years shattered everything I believed about my world. I was 41, a high school chemistry teacher in Houston, Texas, and it seemed the most oblivious man alive. Laura was in the living room, her voice carrying that smug tone she used when she thought she was outsmarting everyone. The faculty retreat had ended early because of a storm, and I'd driven home through the downpour, eager to surprise her. Instead, I overheard her mocking the greatest betrayal of my life. "Can you believe it? 12 years and he's got no clue," she said, laughing. "Mark and I always get a kick out of it. Daniel's the perfect fool." My knees buckled. Emma was 10, Liam was 8. They had my smile, or so I'd always thought. They called me Dad. I coached Liam's soccer team. Emma and I built model volcanoes for her science fairs every Saturday. The bitter irony wasn't lost on me. I taught genetics for a living, yet I'd missed the truth staring me in the face. "The best part is how proud he gets when people say Liam's his spitting image," Laura went on, her voice laced with glee. "Like father, like son, if only he knew." I set my keys down quietly on the console table, my hands trembling. My mind was already racing. 12 years of marriage. 12 years of believing I was building a family with someone who cherished me. 12 years of being played while she mocked me with her lover. "Mark thinks I should tell him soon," she said. "He says it's time the kids know who their real dad is, but why ruin a good thing? Daniel covers all the bills, does the heavy lifting, and Mark gets to be the cool guy they see on weekends when I say I'm visiting my cousin." I retreated to the door, my heart pounding so loudly I was sure she'd hear it. But Laura kept talking, oblivious to the fact that her carefully guarded secret had just unraveled. I should feel guilty, but Daniel made it so simple. He never doubted me, never asked for proof, just swallowed every lie like the dutiful husband he is. Outside, the rain still poured. I climbed into my truck and sat there for 20 minutes, watching the water trail down the windshield until clarity hit me. This wasn't about rage anymore. It was about justice. I met Laura 15 years ago at an education conference in Fort Worth. She was a part-time art teacher, radiant and witty, with a smile that lit up the room. I was 28, just out of my master's program, and completely enchanted. We married after 3 years, and Emma came along 2 years later. I poured my heart into being the father I'd always wanted, one who was present, unlike my own dad, who was always away at his factory job. Every dance recital, every soccer practice, every bandaged cut, I was there. When Liam arrived 2 years after Emma, I felt my life was whole. But sitting in my truck, memories started to shift. Laura's frequent weekend trips that never included me. Her visits to her cousin in Dallas, with no photos or anecdotes to share. The way she controlled our finances, always finding extra cash for things we hadn't planned. Mark Tanner, I knew the name. He was a landscaper who'd worked on our yard 3 years ago. Laura had pushed for him despite his high quote, saying she trusted his work. He had that rough charm women noticed. I recalled her lingering outside when he was there, offering him lemonade and chatting endlessly. The timeline clicked into place, and it was gut-wrenching. Liam was 8. Mark had been around 3 years ago, but Laura could have known him longer. Emma was 10. That stretched back even further. I thought about how Laura always handled the kids' medical visits alone, how their birth certificates and social security cards were locked in a drawer I never touched, how she'd insisted I stay out of the delivery room for Liam, saying she needed privacy. The clues had been there, but I'd been too trusting to see them. Too focused on being a devoted husband and father to question the family I'd worked so hard for. My phone pinged with a text from Laura. "Where are you? Thought you'd be home early." I stared at it before replying. "Storm held us up, back late, don't wait up." The lie came effortlessly. Apparently, I wasn't the only one who'd learned to deceive in this marriage. I drove around Houston for 2 hours that night, sifting through 13 years of memories, searching for the cracks in what I'd thought was solid. When I finally got home, Laura was asleep. I stood in the kids' doorways, watching them sleep under the soft glow of the hall light. Emma was said to have my determination. Liam supposedly had my build. But now, with a broken heart and clearer eyes, I saw it. The curve of Liam's chin, the way Emma's hair curled at the nape. Details I'd never noticed because I'd never had reason to look. The next morning, I taught my chemistry class about DNA and inheritance patterns, explaining to teenagers how traits pass from parents to children. The irony choked me. At lunch, alone in my classroom, I made a choice. I wouldn't confront Laura. I wouldn't give her the chance to lie her way out or turn this against me. This called for strategy. I opened my laptop and began researching. Paternity tests, divorce attorneys, Texas custody laws, asset division. I'd always been analytical, and this was the most critical problem I'd ever faced. By the end of the school day, a plan was taking shape. Laura thought she was cunning, thought she'd fooled me completely. But she'd underestimated how sharp I could be when pushed. At dinner that night, I sat with my family, listening to Emma chatter about her science fair and Liam grumble about spelling tests. Laura smiled at me across the table, playing the doting wife, unaware I knew her secret. "You're quiet tonight," she said, touching my arm. "You okay?" I met her gaze, the eyes that had deceived me for over a decade, and smiled. "Just thinking about how much this family means to me," I said. "How I'd do anything to keep it together." She patted my arm. "You're such a good man, Daniel. I'm so lucky." I nodded, my smile steady. "I feel the same." But inside, something had changed. I was no longer the trusting husband who accepted everything. I was a man with a mission, and I'd see it through. Over the next 3 weeks, I gathered evidence meticulously, keeping up the act at home. It was agonizing to smile at Laura and the kids while my world crumbled. I arranged paternity tests, legal ones, admissible in court. I told the lab it was for insurance purposes, a small lie to avoid questions. Getting samples was simple: hair from their brushes while they were at school, saliva from their breakfast cups, preserved carefully. I provided my own sample at the lab during lunch. While waiting for results, I dug into our finances. Laura managed our accounts, but I could access the statements. What I found was sickening. Unauthorized withdrawals, transfers to unfamiliar accounts, money meant for the kids' futures vanishing. I hired a private investigator, Ellen Carter, a former detective who specialized in infidelity cases. I paid her from a secret account I'd opened years ago with an inheritance from my aunt, unknown to Laura. "I need everything," I told Ellen at a diner near downtown. "How long this has been going on, where they meet, all of it." "This will hurt," she warned. "Are you sure you want the full picture?" I thought of Laura's laughter, calling me a fool. "I'm sure." The paternity results arrived first. The cold, clinical report confirmed my fears. Zero chance I was Emma or Liam's biological father. Even braced for it, the truth hit like a punch. I sat in my truck outside the lab, staring at the papers. The children I'd raised, loved, and protected weren't biologically mine. Every holiday, every bedtime story, every proud moment was built on a lie. But then I realized something. Biology didn't make me their dad. Love did. Being there every day for 10 and 8 years did. Whatever Laura had done, Emma and Liam were still my kids in every way that mattered. Now I'd fight for them with everything I had. Ellen's first report came 2 days later, and it was worse than I'd imagined. She had photos, receipts, hotel records spanning years. Laura and Mark weren't just having an affair. They were living a parallel life. Her cousin visits were romantic escapes. Our missing money funded their affair. The most damning evidence was a recording from a cafe where they discussed their future, planning to move in together and tell the kids who their real dad was. They spoke of me as a temporary obstacle, someone who'd fade away once they were ready to be a real family. I listened to that recording 3 times in my empty classroom after school. Each time it felt like a blade in my heart, but it fueled my determination. They thought I was weak. They were wrong. Ellen uncovered more. Mark and Laura had been involved since before our marriage. They dated in college, parted when he moved to El Paso, but reconnected when he returned to Houston 5 years later, 2 years into our marriage, around Emma's birth. The timeline was crushing. I'd been the safe bet, the steady provider, while Laura kept her true love on the side. I found a joint bank account they'd shared for 7 years, siphoning money I'd earned teaching kids about science. The worst was a property record. 3 years ago, they'd bought a house together with funds from our savings. They were planning a future without me in a home I'd unknowingly helped finance. That night, I did something new. I checked Laura's phone while she showered. The evidence was overwhelming, years of texts with Mark, intimate and cruel, mocking me. They discussed telling the kids the truth, debating how to handle me. Mark wanted a gradual reveal. Laura pushed for a quick break. "The longer we wait, the harder it'll be," Mark wrote. "They should know their real dad." Laura replied, "Daniel might want visitation." "We need to prepare for that fight." Mark's response, "Let him try. Blood wins in court." I returned the phone and lay beside her that night, her arm draping over me in a gesture that once felt warm but now felt like a trap. Mark was wrong, though. I wasn't fighting for visitation. I was fighting for full custody, and I'd win because I had the truth and a plan they couldn't predict. I gave myself 1 more week to perfect everything. Every detail had to be airtight, every piece of evidence legally sound. I wouldn't let Laura twist this or paint me as the villain. I hired Sarah Mitchell, a top Houston family law attorney. She reviewed Ellen's evidence and the paternity results. "This is one of the clearest cases of fraud I've seen," she said. "The financial deception, the paternity, their long-term plan to cut you out, we're in a strong position." I moved my secret inheritance account to a new bank and stored evidence copies in a safe deposit box, untouchable by Laura. The hardest part was acting normal at home, pretending all was well while knowing our life was about to collapse. I documented my bond with the kids, photos, videos, schoolwork, proving I'd been their true parent. Biology or not, I'd raised them. 2 weeks before my plan's execution, Laura gave me an opening. She announced a girls' weekend in Dallas for her birthday, showing me a fake hotel booking. "Just me and the girls," she said. "Rachel's planning it." I knew it was a lie. Ellen confirmed Mark would be in Dallas for a landscaping job. I smiled. "Sounds fun, you deserve it." "Can you handle the kids for 3 days?" she asked, a touch patronizing. "I've been their dad for 10 and 8 years, I said evenly. "I know how it works." The irony hung between us. That weekend became my deadline. By the time Laura returned, the legal papers would be filed, the evidence submitted, and her world of lies would begin to fall apart. Over the next 2 weeks, I quietly said farewell to the life I'd known, though no one else suspected it. I soaked in the sound of Emma and Liam's giggles at breakfast, the way sunlight filtered through our dining room curtains, the warmth of a family I'd believed was true. These moments would soon lose their innocence. After this weekend, nothing would be the same. But for the first time in weeks, the ache in my chest gave way to something else. Resolve. On Friday afternoon, I hugged Laura goodbye and watched her pull out of the driveway for her so-called girls' weekend. I'd arranged for Emma and Liam to stay with my brother's family, ensuring they were shielded from the storm about to break. By Monday morning, my plan was in motion. I started with the divorce papers, served to Laura at her workplace in front of her colleagues. Next, I filed for emergency custody of Emma and Liam, backed by the DNA evidence and Ellen's detailed reports of Laura's betrayal. Then came the financial fraud charges, supported by bank statements tracing every cent she'd siphoned off. The final blow was a letter Sarah prepared for Mark's wife. Ellen had uncovered, 3 weeks into her investigation, that Mark was married. His wife, Weren, was clueless about his secret life with Laura and the children he'd fathered during their marriage. Weren received a package with everything. The paternity tests, the photographs, the bank records, the property deeds, proof her husband had been deceiving her for years. When Laura returned from Dallas on Sunday night, she walked into an empty home. I'd moved out over the weekend, taking only my belongings and leaving a single envelope on the dining table. Inside were copies of everything: the DNA results, the custody filing, the financial fraud evidence, and a letter I'd written. "You called me the perfect fool," it began. "You laughed about how easy it was to trick me for 12 years. You were right. I was naive to trust you, but you made one fatal error. You underestimated how clever I could be when pushed. While you built your hidden life with Mark, I built a case that will unravel everything you thought you'd secured. The children you used as pieces in your scheme deserve parents who don't lie about who they are. I'll fight for them with all I have, and I'll win because I put their needs first." The legal fight stretched over 6 months, but the outcome was clear from the start. Laura's web of lies was too intricate, too thoroughly exposed, and too destructive for any court to overlook. I was granted full custody of Emma and Liam, with Laura limited to supervised visits. The financial ruling crushed her. She was ordered to repay every dollar she'd stolen from our accounts, plus damages and legal fees. The house she and Mark had bought was confiscated as part of the settlement. Mark's marriage collapsed within weeks. Weren filed for divorce, taking half his assets, including his landscaping company. His reputation in Houston was ruined as news of his decade-long deceit spread. He fled back to El Paso, leaving Laura to face the fallout alone. Laura lost her art teaching job when the school board learned of the fraud charges. Her friends and family, appalled by her actions, distanced themselves. She moved into a cramped apartment on the edge of town, working as a cashier to survive while making monthly restitution payments that would take years to clear. Emma and Liam handled it better than I'd hoped. I explained the truth in terms they could understand, emphasizing that family is built on love and dedication, not just blood. They still called me Dad, because that's who I'd always been. We relocated to a smaller house in a new Houston neighborhood, starting fresh as a unit. Emma still dives into her science projects, and Liam keeps playing soccer. They see their mother twice a month under court supervision, but their home is with me. Reflecting now, I see that the truest revenge isn't about tearing someone else down. It's about protecting yourself and those you love from their deception.